Hey guys, Savage Joy here with Real Progressives. Tonight I am joined by, for a second time, by California independent candidate for District 6, Mr. Eric Frame. So thank you so much for coming back and joining us, Eric.
Thanks for having me, Joy. It's a pleasure as always.
Thank you so much. So like I said, you're an independent. You guys are certainly my favorites because I'm a very proud independent myself. So what made you choose to run in the independent party?
Yeah, actually, originally, we were running as a Green candidate. But as we started campaigning more and more, we found out that running as an independent is very much loved among the population. And I found that, going door to door when I say I'm independent and corporate free, that's kind of usually a done deal right there. People are instantly nodding their heads in agreement and saying, yes, that's refreshing to see. I've heard people say, I'm registered Democrat, but now I vote independent. I've heard people say I'm registered Republican, but I vote independent now. So running independent was a very good choice. We're not sure we would have made the top two if we didn't decide to switch to independent. I also enjoy it because it kind of frees me from party politics, and it also gets rid of a label, the labeling of things. And I'm part of our campaign is to eliminate labels. Actually, that's a big effort that I'm putting forth to unify people and to vote for people over party and corporate free candidates over parties that are beholden to corporations. So it's been very nice running as an independent, and we're very proud, and I'm going to be remaining independent for quite some time for my life.
Awesome. And, California, since you're in California, you guys have one of those things they refer to as a jungle primary, where, it's the top two people with votes get to, you could have two Greens, a Dem and a Republican, two Republicans, whatever, just the two people with the most votes. I know in your case it was advantageous, but do you think that overall it is a good way to do things in California?
Yes, absolutely. The numbers show that the fastest growing party actually is the non-party. The no party preference, or the decline to state, which in other words is independent, is the fastest growing registration party or no party in California. There's rumor that, well, right now in my district, 22% of the voters are declined to state, independent, no party preference, whatever you want to call it. And the word around the street and around the Capitol is that number of 22% will likely be around 38% within the next 5 years. So many people are declining to state now because after seeing what happened with the 2016 election, people are realizing that the two-party system in reality is really a twin party system. That's what I used to call it and still do, a twin party system. They're really the same corporate heads, running the show in each party side. So a lot of people are declining to state these days and are ready to vote independent and be independent. So I'm happy to kind of be a framework, if you will, for independent candidacies going forward.
Absolutely. So as far as when you're going door to door, and your volunteers are as well, what are some things that you're hearing about constantly as far as concerns? What are the topics which keep being broached when you go to people's doors?
There is a general viewpoint of California being riddled with corruption, which of course is very true. It's probably one of the most corrupt states in the union. So one line that I usually say is, hi, my name is Eric Frame. I'm an independent candidate running for state senate. I'm independent and party free, and I just want to bring some common sense back to California. And people generally smile at that moment when they hear the word common sense. And they usually say, well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? So there's a general viewpoint that California is going in the wrong direction. It's going backwards. Our representatives here in California want to make it seem like California is such this wonderful progressive state, but in reality, it's actually the opposite. We have more homelessness. Homelessness is a big problem that we're facing, and that comes up every time I door knock as well. Elderly people becoming homeless, veterans out there, families out there. So that's a huge issue that comes up. The status quo healthcare system, which my opponent wants to keep, is the worst healthcare system in the world. It's the most expensive healthcare system, and it doesn't have very good results at all. It's one of the most deadly healthcare systems in the world. So I am for a single payer healthcare for all system. My opponent, who is a doctor, is against a single payer healthcare for all system, despite being a doctor. If you ask me, that is breaking his Hippocratic oath. But what's drawing him in is he's got so much money coming from health insurance companies and things like that that are, tying his puppet strings, really. So I was on the team for Healthcare for All SB 562 that went to small businesses to explain single payer and the merits of it. So this is such an important race right now for anyone that cares about changing up the status quo healthcare system we have right now, which, as I just mentioned, is very, very bad. And my mother went through it, so it has touched me and my family personally to see my mother go through chemotherapy and the costs that came with that, and the fact that we have people going bankrupt and homeless just to pay for their medical bills. So it hit close to my heart and my family's heart, and so we're running for her, and we're running for everyone else that is just sick of this oppressive state that we live in of California.
Absolutely. I've fought for Medicare for all for years, and never did I think I'd be in the position where I would need it myself. And the past 2 months, here I am. So it's scary. It's definitely scary. So you did talk about your mom on your homepage, essentially on your candidacy page, and you shared how you were still getting bills after she passed away. What's that like to have those constant reminders that it's like, why should I even have to pay this shit? They didn't even help her.
Right. Yeah, and my father, I think at this point it's finally subsided, but for a good year and a half after my mother passed away, my father was still receiving bills from his insurance company. Bills that were very, very expensive, but also bills that he wasn't supposed to pay. So he had to go through all these calls and things, all the time being reminded of my mother's death and passing, of course. He has to call up all these insurance companies, which of course is hell in and of itself, is calling all these insurance companies and talking to the robocall people and things like that. So it was basically, putting salt in the wound for my poor father, and that's the healthcare system we have now. It's so bad that they even follow through with these terrible practices of billing people beyond death. I do want to mention, Joy, that I just received the endorsement of Healthcare for All in California. So I want to plug them, and they've been fighting hard. They fought hard for SB 562, and they're fighting hard for Medicare for all right now. And I have recently received their endorsement, so I'm very grateful for that.
Awesome.
And you can see my endorsements, you can donate, and you can read more about me at ericframeforsenate.org.
Yeah, I saw that when I was looking at your website again today. That's amazing. And California, it's got to be so hard to fight for Medicare for all and live in California because, as most of us know, the stupid twat Anthony Rendon is a Democrat who shelved HB 676. We would be on our way if it wasn't for him. So what's that like to be the closest state, more so than any of us have ever gotten, and then to have a so-called Democrat just be like, fuck you?
Yeah, well, there's, people say that California is like the stepping stone state. What happens in California happens for the rest of the country. So it would have been great to get a single payer bill passed in California and be that example for the rest of the country, so we don't have people going bankrupt or homeless just to pay their medical bills. But as you said, Rendon, he shelved it. I'm sure he was told to shelve it by his, corporate backers. And all sorts of other Democrats like my opponent stood against it and spoke against it or abstained from the vote, cowardly, in many ways in a cowardly way, abstained from the vote and then spoke against it. Yeah, I think, I'm happy that 562 was put up and, people knew about it as an option and things like that, because it just further shows, how corrupt California is. We now are able to see Rendon as the man he is. We're able to see my opponent, Richard Pan, as the man he is. And in that way, we've been more informed through this process of SB 562. So I'm happy it went down. I'm disappointed in the outcome, but I'm also not surprised by the outcome based on all that I've seen in recent years, both nationally and statewide and locally, in fact, in terms of corruption.
And that's something that's so beautiful about Bernie's campaign is he brought the words Medicare for all to become a household name. And now, so many candidates are, say it now, and it just becomes so much more accepted. So it's pretty amazing that we've seen, it's a tough fight, but we've seen, a lot of protests and stuff, and the more we bring it up, the more people are going to have to say, shit, we're not going to get their votes unless we start, looking into this. Speaking of voting, what is your voter registration deadline in California?
In Sacramento, in my county, actually, it's a little different from other counties. There's actually same-day registration in Sacramento this year. They're actually trying this out new. What they've done is made it a mostly mail-in ballot situation. People are getting their ballots right now, which is why we're really pressing right now to get volunteers out there and make all the calls we can. But people are getting their mail-in ballot right now. But there's also a same-day registration option when you go into the polling sites, and this actually has helped with turnout. Last election cycle, Sacramento County had around 29% turnout. But since they changed to this, 29%, which of course is a massive failure, when they changed to this new system, we got up to around 41%. So that's a big jump. It's a good thing to have more people coming out and voting. At the same time, 41% is still a failure. That is the vast majority of people being disillusioned by the entire system and choosing not to vote. It's so strange that the majority of people are actually either unregistered or are registered but don't vote because they're so disillusioned with the whole system in general. So our campaign's trying to tap into those people. We're trying to tap into, progressive Democrats and even common sense conservatives as well, and independents, of course.
What do you think? I mean, I personally am a very firm believer that if we had open primaries, Bernie would be president. What do you think as far as open primaries, same day registration, paper ballots? What would you like to see in the future? Not just in California, but, in our country as a whole.
Yeah, I would like to see open primaries, the top two system. Even though I was able to sneak my way into it, it's a bit of a sham that's made for, our twin party system. It helps them get in that top two more than any other third parties. I support proportional representation, which would help third parties and smaller parties actually get representation, as opposed to not getting anything if they don't win any percentage of. If they won 10% of the vote, if Green won 10% of the vote, we would actually get some representation as opposed to nothing at all. So I support proportional representation. I support ranked choice voting, which would be another way to get past the choose between the lesser of two evils decision that we keep getting stuck with a ranked choice system. You vote for the person you like the best, and then you vote for the second best person in your opinion, and then the third. And that way you don't have to decide between the two worst. You could have thrown in Bernie as your number one, like most of us thought. And
I wrote that sucker in.
And I do support same-day registration. With the massive amount of people that are disillusioned, I really think there needs to be a movement of people and real candidates to go out there and disillusion people out of the system and let them know that there are candidates like myself and others that are corporate free. We're young and we have a lot of energy and we're so sick of the system, and that we have nothing to lose. If we don't go out there and vote for people like myself and other corporate free candidates, then we're just, not doing our job. So waking up all those people is very important to me, and unifying people behind corporate free candidates. It's a message that is unifying for all parties, really, is to be corporate free and independent as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's something so rewarding about my show, is because I've interviewed almost 100 candidates from across the country, all Bernie crowd, all progressive, all take no big money, all want Medicare for all. These candidates are out there. They really are. They may not be in every district, but they are out there. So as far as, Richard Pan, there's a real gem. He's the one you're running against, and he is, basically, to put it mildly, the epitome of corruption and evil. I remember when I had you on last time, that was like the first thing you messaged me with was, check out this guy. Like, he's disgusting. Like, he's abhorrent. First, before I forget, are you going to be able to debate him?
No, his people have refused to call me back or have not, acknowledged my calls or gotten back to me. I've spoken to some in person. They say we don't want to talk about that right now. So they're not going to want to debate for multiple reasons. But no, they won't be debating. Although tomorrow night I will be in Elk Grove for a candidates forum. Supposedly my opponent will be there as well. Now, they warned us not to debate too much and just to talk about our ideas. But, I'm going to tell the truth and say what I can, as much as I can, out there in Elk Grove. So I'm excited for that tomorrow night. And, we'll have some other candidate forums happening, and we'll send out invitations to my opponent as well. But he won't show up, most likely. Now, this is a big part of his thing, is that he actually doesn't respond to people. I've heard this from people I door knocked with. A lady says she brought an issue to all of her representatives. The only one that didn't respond to her was my opponent, Richard Pan. I was on the team for SB 562. We went to his office to talk to him about his stance against single payer and why that was. And of course, he didn't show up, only he sent a representative. So he's got a clear pattern of ignoring his constituents and not responding to his constituents. Meanwhile, I'm actually going to people's doors, and I have a direct email that people can actually contact with me. Let me just rattle off a few of my opponent's corporate donors, okay? Monsanto, Bayer, Chevron, let's see, PG&E. Everyone loves PG&E these days, as they're trying to pass a bill so that the taxpayers pay for the fires they started. Wells Fargo's got a great reputation, right? They love stealing money from their people that are using the bank. So that's just a few of them. There is a very interesting thing he did while he was in the assembly that I like pointing out, is that he, as a pediatrician, he voted against the informing or the taking out. He voted against the taking out of BPA from child products. He voted against taking BPA out of child products, which are BPA, as we all know by now, they're cancer-causing chemicals, materials. And so he, as a pediatrician, once again, voted against taking BPA out of child products. And part of that, we believe, is because he has a lot of money from Johnson & Johnson. And Johnson & Johnson rather have their products, instead of having to change them and have a price to change them, they'd rather just go ahead with the BPA, which causes cancer for children. So you mentioned evil. I think that kind of constitutes a little bit of evil there, in my opinion. So those are just some of the corporations that are backing my opponent.
What if you try to, like, you get like a super nice suit and an ascot and a monocle and like print up some fake business cards that say you're from Pfizer or something and show up? Do you
To
think
one
that
of his
would
events.
work, or
Well, I think I can wriggle my way into any event that I choose. I clean up nice. I'm wearing my T-shirt now for this, but I
yeah?
clean up pretty well with my suit and tie and stuff. So, that's something to look into. I actually went to I sort of infiltrated an event of his that was about small business, and I went in there because I'm actually a small business owner. I do supervised visitation for people that go through family court, and so I should get people back with their kids so they can visit them. And I actually infiltrated that thing that he was at for small businesses, and I schmoozed with all sorts of people. That's where I asked his people, his representatives about the debate once again, and they said no, I can't talk about that right now, something like that. So, yeah, I have been infiltrating a lot of his events actually. So we're on that.
Surprisingly, I really don't think I've ever had a candidate say that the other person was willing to debate them. I really can't think of another of a time, because honestly, you debate him and all you have to do is say the words Medicare for all. Everyone in the audience is going to cheer and he's going to be like, oh shit. So he knows, it's so pathetic. But now remind me, is he a Republican or a Democrat?
It's hard to tell sometimes, but he's registered as a Democrat.
Okay, that's what I thought, which is just wonderful. This is what Vote Blue no matter who gets us. Gems like him. So I digress. So you and your father actually did something insanely amazing. You and your father walked 500 miles through Spain.
Oh,
So
yeah,
can you
yeah.
kind of explain why, and what was that inspiration, and what how that changed you, what you took away from it?
Yeah, absolutely. So right after my mother passed away, my father and I, well, what was going to happen was my father was going to walk with my mother. They were going to walk together. It's called the Camino de Santiago. It's a 500-mile trek through northern Spain. Starts actually in France and then goes all the way to the coast of Spain. And so because my mother passed away, I took up the reins and went up with him. And and we had a really good time. And it was really a healing process to get over, well, not get over, but understand more fully my mother's suffering and why it has to occur, and what happened there, and mourning, mourning a lot. So it was very helpful for us. For me personally, it really helped me gain a lot of confidence and was really a catalyst for me choosing to run for office. When this race came to me, I just said yes, basically, because I felt like it came into my lap, almost destined. So I just decided to say yes. And part of that confidence to just go out there and say yes was walking through Spain, meeting hundreds of people from all over the world, people from Australia, and you name it, there's people from all over the world doing this walk. So that helped me gain a lot of confidence in terms of my social ability. And I've really taken that on while door knocking and walking my fair amount of miles right here in Sacramento, doing the door knocking and talking to people at their home. So we've actually hit around over 300 precincts. I'm checking out my map right now.
Wow.
And there's more to go, of course, but I've probably walked over 500 miles by now already. I have the same thing that Cortez has with the shoes that are being, torn away by the sheer amount of walking I've been doing. So, and my wife and other volunteers as well. So, yeah, thank you for asking about the Spanish trip. It's always nice to relive it. My father and I like to relive it and talk about it. He'll come up to me and say, 2 years ago today, we were in Cantolina over Lagaro or something. And I'm like, oh, right. So I have a problem remembering what that name is, so he usually has to explain further. But
That is so incredible.
it was wonderful. I do recommend it for basically anyone. to go out there and do it. It's a very spiritual and awakening experience out there.
I'm sure. And speaking of your wife, Ashley, hi, Ashley. We adore you. You are awesome. And yes, you are a kick-ass canvasser and such as well. So you're a lucky dude, Eric, and you're a lucky gal, Ashley.
Ashley says hi. And thank you.
I can see them in the comments.
Okay. Oh, she's commenting. Okay.
So you have election reform on your platform, and that's one of the reasons people are so discouraged from voting. Does my vote matter? What's the point? So I assume you've at least gotten some of those when you go door to door. And how do you respond to that? How do you encourage them? No, your vote is going to count.
Well, I say, look at me. I made it to the top 2, and I don't have any corporate funding. I raised all my money from members of the public and the community, individual people. So you're looking at a candidate. This is me talking to someone at the door. You're looking at a candidate right here that actually cracked the top 2 without taking corporate money. And you can vote for me right now in November. So, there's a lot of reasons to be pessimistic with all the issues that we face, human trafficking, homelessness, corruption. But in my opinion, it's imperative that we stay optimistic and stay positive, because when we, dive deep into the fear, when we get stuck in fear, that's when we remain controlled. When we're out of fear and we're thinking positively and optimistically, and we're just going out there and doing the best we can, because that's all we're doing, and just acknowledge yourself as a person and acknowledge others as well that are working with you and that are with you through this journey, that we are doing the best we can, and we have to love each other and overcome the fear, because the fear and the division is really the big picture that we're talking about with our campaign. As long as there's fear, there's going to be control and there's going to be division. And divided we fall, and united we stand. So it's time to unite and just think with some common sense. Should we continue to elect incumbents as homelessness is increasing, as human trafficking remains, as corporations continue to control our politicians? No, there's no reason to vote for an incumbent right now, in my opinion, depending on who's running against them, of course. But in general, we need to start voting for new blood, people that are running for office. There's a lot of young people that are actually running for office right now. Some of them have been able to crack the top 2, and others I hope will continue to fight and run for office themselves. So hope is eternal, hope springs eternal, and we need to remain optimistic and positive and spread the love and spread the truth and spread some common sense. I also like to empower people and tell them, we have the potential right now to go out and build homes for the homeless. We have the potential to go out and pick up all the trash that's on the ground in Sacramento. We can do this as people. We don't need to wait for a corrupt California government to come out and supposedly do these things for us. We can do it as people, and that's another thing I'm trying to push, because we can be the change that we want to see in the world, just like Gandhi said.
Yep, absolutely. You're getting some props in the comments here. They're feeling it.
Good. Well, go to ericframeforsenate.org and please donate. We're corporate free, and we need more money to get yard signs right now. We have hundreds of yard signs out, but they're in high demand. So we need some more money from individuals that are like-minded, like myself and my wife, that are just trying our best in getting a corporate candidate out of office. So please, ericframeforsenate.org. Shameless plug, I'm sorry, but this is what we need to do. We need to unite and help get people like me elected.
So one of the very interesting things about your actual website, for your candidacy, is that in your description about yourself, you actually talk about who you voted in the general. And I never see that, ever. Primaries, yeah. General, no. And you voted for Jill Stein. You voted third party. That is ballsy. Should it be? No. Doesn't matter? No, it's a personal choice. But you put it there, and I'm telling you, I never see that, ever. So it shows, so much about your transparency that you don't feel like you did anything wrong, as you shouldn't. So was that something you weighed? Whether you should, disclose, who you voted for the general?
Actually, for that, no, not really. I kind of just wanted to tell the truth in my bio, and um, I like to think a lot of people are like-minded, and that Bernie was a much better candidate than our the Democratic opponent. So, and I'm pretty proud to have voted for Jill, in that we saw what our options were. People were tired of voting for the lesser of two evils, as I was. Honestly, for me, it's hard to determine which one was more evil. So I might as well vote Jill Stein in that case. So I've met the woman. I met Jill later. She's a wonderful gal. I hugged her and things like that. We don't see eye to eye on every single issue, but my campaign is about unifying people. And the big picture is we have so much corruption. We just need to elect people that are corporate free and start with that. Then we can see if a government actually works, if we get real representatives. So, you mentioned the transparency. One of our taglines is the most transparent candidacy of all time. So we're trying to stick to that and respond to our constituents that have questions or comments, and be very open about our stances on various issues. So, and there's no better way to do it than just be open about it. So we're happy to be transparent. And I'm not a polished politician. This is my first run for office. So, maybe a lot of politicians learn to lie, but I haven't really gotten that far yet.
No, take off the yet. Don't get there. You're too.
I won't get there.
You are now. Cancel that.
Yeah.
You on your platform, you do have sex trafficking. Is that something you see a lot in your district?
Yeah, I started going to city councils and then doing my own research about the local issues that face Sacramento. I found out Sacramento is a hub of human trafficking, according to the FBI. Sacramento has been put in the top 18 worst human trafficking cities in the whole USA. KCRA 3 reported we're the second worst back in 2012 or something like that. So this is an issue that not many people speak of, especially our representatives, and it's being swept under the rug. And that is tied in with the corruption, of course. So I've been going to city council for quite some time, and I always remind them that we've been called a hub of human trafficking. And there's actually been, pretty disgracefully, I've seen people come into city council, speak to the council and the mayor about a particular place called the Children's Receiving Home. That is another hub of trafficking. They've seen child trafficking occur right out those doors. And what those people got that were speaking about that issue very heartfully was from the mayor. The mayor said, that's not our jurisdiction, and then the vice mayor, who usually is sitting in for the mayor because he doesn't like to be there for public comment, would say something like, well, we'll send you and talk to this staffer here and we'll see what we can do. Both of those responses aren't good enough for someone coming to you about child trafficking happening straight out of this building in Sacramento. So on top of it all, the other day, a few weeks ago at City Council, I learned one more thing, and that is that Sacramento is actually number 4 on the list of the worst suicide cities. The worst suicide cities, number 4. So we've got a hub of human trafficking. We've got number 4 in the worst suicide cities. We have homelessness increasing, elderly people on the streets. We have trash all over the place. We don't have enough public bathrooms. That's just 5 issues we're facing right here in Sacramento, which is the county and city that I'm running in. So if anyone feels like those 5 issues should be handled or shouldn't at least be getting worse, which they are, then maybe we should consider voting for someone that's not an incumbent and that's not corporately funded like myself. So once again, ericframeforsenate.org, if you can help us out by phone banking, there's a way to sign up on there. You can phone bank from outside this district. You can text bank, which is very easy, and it's actually very helpful. You can send 100 texts within 20 minutes, basically. So go to ericframeforsenate.org to sign up to help us in that regard. You can also contribute on there as well. And the city is so backwards, the leadership is so backwards that we need to try something new, and I'm happy to oblige as the future state senator here in Sacramento.
So you do talk about homelessness on your platform, and somebody in the comments, I'm sorry guys, I forget who because it was a little while down. Somebody also was asking about the correlation of rent prices being too high as well. First, do you support a federal job guarantee? And if so, great. If not, how else would you basically help the rent and the homelessness and things like that?
Yeah. So another thing to add to the 5 is one more, and that is that Sacramento actually has the fastest raising rents in the entire nation. So what we're seeing is, of course, more homelessness come about because of that, especially elderly folk that are on fixed income and can't afford it. Also, Social Security is much too low in California. It's at the federal poverty level, which the federal poverty level is a lot different from the California poverty level, as we all know. Well, anyone that lives in California knows that it's extremely expensive to live here. So giving our elderly folk, federal poverty level for their Social Security is just a ticket to homelessness, basically. So I'm for, the raise of SSI as well. When it comes to federal guaranteed jobs, I'm all for that as well. I see all this trash on the streets. I see a lack of public bathrooms and working water fountains. I think there's jobs in picking up that trash. There's jobs in manning those public bathrooms to have someone there just in case they're trashed or something like that. And really, we need some. I'm living in California. I'm running a campaign and trying to pay rent at the same time. And trust me, it's extremely difficult to do that. And because the campaign takes so much time away from making the money to pay rent. So it has been extremely difficult. So I know exactly what a lot of people out here are going through. And it's only getting worse as the rents continue to skyrocket. In addition to the fact that our supply of affordable housing is not really going up at all. Our government has so many permits and fees and regulations on actually building affordable housing that they've made it nearly impossible to build any. I've heard people having to pay upwards of 6 figures just to get started on a house that they're building for one family home. It's ridiculous how bad the state of California has created this housing crisis.
So do you support rent control laws?
Yeah, I actually went door to door for the rent control law that's hopefully will be enacted in the city of Sacramento. I also support very wholeheartedly the repeal of Costa-Hawkins, which my opponent, I actually infiltrated one of his events and I asked him directly about Costa-Hawkins, and he was very wishy-washy. He said that, I
don't know what that is.
He knew what it was. He went off on the talking point that, all these people coming from San Francisco is why, the housing crisis is occurring. It's like, we're going to blame them, I guess, who are also being gentrified out of their city, and everything is being gentrified in California. So people are there's a mass migration out of California. If anyone doesn't know, millions of people leave the state each year because we can't afford to live here anymore. And this is a deliberate gentrification that's occurring through the state. So yes, I do support the repeal of Costa-Hawkins and rent control and just cause eviction for renters, so we don't have people just being kicked out, elderly people most likely just being kicked out because the landlord wants to get someone that can pay a higher price. So Costa-Hawkins also has these things in it. These, the fine print in Costa-Hawkins also actually gives incentives for landowners and building owners to keep buildings empty. Tax incentives. And obviously, with elderly people and people on the streets, this is so backwards. To give incentives to keep buildings empty while people literally on the streets next to that building are suffering. So the repeal of Costa-Hawkins would be a big deal to reverse that. And I would like to push legislation to give incentives to house people in these empty buildings that are collecting dust. There's literally empty buildings all over Sacramento. There's empty apartment buildings right across the street from a park that has 50 to 70 homeless people sleeping there on a daily basis. So you look at that picture and it doesn't make any sense at all. So clearly we have some backwards leaders, and we just need to elect people like me, please.
Wow, that's just incredible. When I had Javanka Beckles on, she was saying the same exact things, and it's really incredible. I have a lot of people asking if you know MMT. I know we modern monetary theory.
No, I think I just saw that on, maybe it was something you were talking about earlier or on your page somewhere.
Oh yeah, probably.
I saw MMT. What's it called? Modern
monetary theory.
Modern monetary theory. Okay.
Bernie Sanders' economic advisor, his chief economic advisor, Stephanie Kelton. She's one of the people we look up to share that information. She's quite brilliant. But basically what it means is federal taxes don't fund spending. When people say we don't have the money for that, yeah, we actually do. So we have a few links that we always send to people that, a short video, an article and stuff. But it's really advantageous to learn, especially if you're a candidate, just because you have factual information to tell people when they say, our taxes are going to go up and we can't afford it and stuff. You can say, actually, we have the means. It's already there. They just, they don't want us to think we have the means. Yeah. So basically, we'll send you like a link in a short video so you can look into it more. But that's something we address to pretty much all our candidates, just to give them a heads up.
That would be great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
See, guys, there you go.
Yeah, there's a talking point that I actually bring up often, and it's kind of related to that, and that is the fact that we have these rainy day funds. We have, millions of dollars of rainy day funds, and to me, what's more rainy than having elderly people out on the street and having children being trafficked? Why can't we use some of these rainy day funds for the elderly folk that are suffering and dying on our streets? It seems like it's rainy enough for me. So that's something I talk about, and I say, the money is there. We just don't have the political will to do anything about it right now or to use it properly. Of course, a lot of funds get pocketed by, our very own politicians. So it's a big issue, and it's something we're on the same page with as well.
Awesome. You on your you word it as uniting the people on your platform. So I think this is a good way to end the show. What can we do to unite people? Because it used to be like Dems and Republicans, but now it's like progressives, like Greens, progressives, Democrats, like Burners, Jill, like it's just bad. There's all these factions of this one movement. So how do we get people on the same page and get people to cooperate and work with each other?
Well, for starters, it's important to recognize and educate people about the fact that we're all under this oppressive system, all of us. I mean, there's a very small group, as we know when you look at the whole 99% versus 1%, there's a very small group that's actually controlling things, and their form of control is actually to divide us. So we see more division these days, it seems like, and I think that was, strategic in some ways. But what we need to do is realize that this entire 99% is being oppressed. It's all of us. It's Greens, it's Democrats, it's progressive Dems, it's conservative, it's Republicans, it's everyone. Everyone's being oppressed. And we have to look past labels, and we actually have to listen to each other. We're not going to agree on everything. We're not going to be eye to eye on everything. But we can agree on is the fact that corruption is occurring, the fact that homelessness is getting worse, the fact that human trafficking is occurring, and child trafficking. And all three of those things are issues we can all agree on. That's why we're running our campaign on that. Another thing people can agree on is the fact that we need publicly funded candidates as opposed to corporately funded candidates. So all four of those things are universal issues that we can all agree on. So when we go out and talk to people, we can't just be belligerent and abide by the labels that are dividing us. We need to listen to people's issues, understand that we're not going to see eye to eye on everything, that there's truth on both sides. There's truth for all of us, and there's people that misunderstand or have been misled. But really, it's all about unity in the end. We're not going to get anything done. We're not going to elect any good people unless we unify. And I'm happy to say, as I've been door knocking, it is actually kind of easy to get people to say, okay, I'll vote independent and for you, corporate-free person. And it's actually been kind of, really nice to see where people's heads are at, these days, especially after 2016. So I do believe wholeheartedly there's an undercurrent of hope and optimism and love that is actually winning the day right now. When we look at our social media, we look at mainstream media, we're going to see more division, more violence and war and all of that. But we have to recognize that there is an undercurrent of real change and compassion and love that is happening right now. We really need to fuel it by getting more active and just once again remember that we are all being oppressed by this system. No matter what label we want to call ourselves or call other people, we're all being oppressed. So we need to unite together, speak out together, and listen to each other. Listen properly. A lot of people don't know how to listen these days. I'm guilty of that to a degree, and I've learned, that you have to listen as opposed to just think about what you're going to say next. So actually listening and understanding people is going to be a big deal because we all have our stories. We've all been oppressed by the system. We all have different stories from different issues that we've faced through this system.
Absolutely. That is a perfect way to end the show. I definitely want you to look through these comments afterwards.
Okay.
Somebody joined us behind you.
Oh, that's my mascot. That's our mascot, Max.
Hi, baby. Oh, that's the one that endorsed you.
Yeah, he endorsed us with that wonderful meme. He's
oh, hi, buddy.
He's a great cat.
Oh.
Max, say hi. Say hi.
Very enthused. So I know Ashley put some links in here, but you want to just give your website once more and Twitter and Facebook and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at Senator Frame 1776.
Nope,
just at Senator Frame. We think positively with our Senator Frame stuff. You can email me at senatorframe1776@yahoo.com. And you can go to my website at ericframeforsenate.org. You can donate there. You can sign up to volunteer. We have a phone banking and text banking app that's very easy to use, actually. And you can friend request me at Facebook, Eric Frame. You can like my Facebook page, which is Eric Frame for State Senate 2018. Never mind. It's been changed to Eric Frame for Senate, shorter. And Instagram?
Frame for Senate.
Instagram is Frame for Senate, number 4.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me again. You're amazing. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you guys for watching. Wednesday, I have a show that's going to be bananas. I have Democratic Socialist candidates Sarah Imarato and Summer Lee. They're both in Pennsylvania, and they beat
Bless you.
They beat Sneeze. They beat 2 really corrupt incumbents that we never thought we would get rid of, ever. And they not just beat them, but they whooped their ass. So they'll be joining me Wednesday. They're awesome. They've been blowing up the news. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So thank you guys again for watching. You guys are always awesome. I love your comments. And thank you once more, Eric. Best of luck with everything. I'll be rooting for you for sure.
Thank you so much, Joy. One last thing. You can go and check out the Eric Frame Dank Meme Stash, which is on Facebook and Instagram. My wife and some volunteers are doing a great job with the memes. So thank you so much, Joy, for having me.
That is awesome. Absolutely. Thank you. Take care, guys.
Yeah, bye.